Happy International Women's Day, everyone. I am Beth Ellen Holloman, president of Dining for Women, and I'm thrilled to be here in Washington, D.C. today to celebrate. We are so excited to have presenters here in D.C., California, Atlanta, and South Carolina. This Google Hangout is spanning the country tonight. In addition, we have chapters and members viewing all across the country. So I want to call out Venice 2 chapter in Florida, Colorado Springs, Sedalia, and Fort Collins in Colorado. Oregon, I think you've got 5 chapters viewing tonight. New Jersey has 4, and Tenafly, I know Sylvie, you all are rocking it tonight. 3 in Arizona, 3 in Georgia, and Decatur, Alabama. I'm so excited you're all here, and we have many more. These are just the ones I know about. It's really exciting that we're all here together to celebrate International Women's Day. And we're here to recognize that women are not victims of circumstance, but that we're resources to each other. We're here to bring women's stories to light and to hear them loudly and to see that we share more than we are different. And to still recognize that we cannot take our foot off the gas. We must persevere for equality and peace. And we can't shrink from our duties to each other as women. What's exciting, another part of what's exciting tonight is this is the night we are officially launching our advocacy program to advance gender equality through the international affairs budget. Our voices together will make a difference, and I've seen some of you active in other causes, postcard powerhouses like Betsy Teutsch in Philadelphia and Polly Ferguson in San Jose, and now you have another way to make a difference through Dining for Women. You may have seen or received the new advocacy guide already. It's beautiful, and we have it digitally on the website if you haven't received it yet. Tonight, we are asking you to take action. On the advocacy page of our website, you will see our call to action. We ask you to reach out to your representatives through email, letters, phone calls, and urge your representative to oppose cuts to the international affairs budget. These cuts will be devastating to women and girls in the developing world, and we're going to tell you more about that topic tonight. That's what our panel discussion is tonight. We have several speakers lined up for you, and they'll be introduced as we go along. We'll be presenting our featured grantee, Women's Justice Initiative in Guatemala, in a moment, and then the panel will begin. During the panel, you will have the opportunity to ask questions, and we'll tell you how to do that in a few minutes. So next we have Wendy Fradolin, our Director of Communications and Membership, who just returned from Rwanda on our DFW trip with 13 other very happy travelers. So I'm excited to pass it over to Wendy.
Happy International Women's Day, everyone. I am thrilled to be here talking with you tonight and to be back from a very exciting trip to Rwanda. Beth Ellen asked me to share a little story with you from the trip to Rwanda that ties into my main task tonight, which is to read our dinner affirmation together. So first of all, I want to say that I was privileged to share this wonderful journey with 13 other amazing women who I can now call friends, and I hope are watching tonight. I also want to say how honored I was to meet all of the women in Rwanda. And we were fortunate enough to see 3 different Dining for Women grantees, one of which was Gardens for Health. And at Gardens for Health, which if you recall is a grant, the grant was used to address childhood malnutrition and to teach mothers and families more about good nutrition. And at the Gardens for Health site, just outside of Kigali, Rwanda, they have a beautiful farm that they produce all kinds of different vegetables and fruits. And we got a wonderful tour of that. And Gardens for Health employs a number of women at the farm, and also to cook what they call a community lunch, where they invite anyone in the area who would like to come and share a meal with them. And so we met many of these women and shared a very special experience with them. It was called and I'm going to mess this up, an Uber hero. Our guide Francoise would just be laughing right now at my horrible Kinyarwanda pronunciations, but what it basically was a women's gathering. And I'm going to show you, here's a picture of all of us, and you can see we were sort of in an open air structure, with a nice cool breeze coming in to cool us off, and we were all sitting around the floor. You can see some of our Dining for Women travelers and the women at Gardens for Health, and they get together, I believe, every second week, and they gather and talk about issues pertaining to women, pertaining to their lives. And we were so honored to be included in on this, and had the opportunity to ask the women from Gardens for Health questions, and they asked us some questions. And of course, with the help of a translator, they know some English. And it was truly a wonderful bonding experience. And to me, that's what Dining for Women is all about, is the connections that we have with each other in our chapters and with the women and girls that we are helping to support. And at the end of this sharing Uber hero, we were going to go and share the community lunch with them. And before that, we read the dinner affirmation, Dining for Women's dinner affirmation. And I read one line, and our translator would translate it, and so on. And by the time we got to the last sentence that talks about, us being able to feast together one day, I think we all had, chills up our spine and maybe a tear in our eyes. And it really was a touching moment. So, I know all of you, may not have this opportunity, but if you ever do, I can tell you that it was a very, very meaningful one. And I know I will never forget it. And I'd like to now have us share the affirmation together. If you would like to read it with us, I'm going to put it up on the screen right now so that you can read it together. If you just want to listen to me, that's fine too. But I think it's a great way to kick off our program tonight. As we share food, we share something of ourselves, and we honor each other. We recognize the powerful associations of women to food, life, and nurture in all cultures. We honor the importance of those. We also recognize the burdens they can bring. We remember the women about whom we've learned, the ones they strive to nurture, and the organizations that are trying to nurture them. By eating together as women, we remember and honor those women who also have favorite foods and family recipes. And we express the hope that through our efforts, they may find more sustenance for their lives. May we all be able to feast together someday. All right. Well, I hope that you find that as meaningful as I do. And I would now like to introduce to you Sarah Dury, who is going to to present tonight's featured grantee for March Women's Justice Initiative. Sarah is a member of Dining for Women's Board of Directors, and she chairs our Grants and Partnerships Oversight Committee. She has been a chapter leader in Atlanta for more than 5 years, and her passion for gender equality really is exemplified through both her professional and her personal life. Throughout her career, she has worked for a number of organizations that are focused on women and girls. She's currently in her master's program, pursuing a master's in development practice, and she is concentrating on gender issues and WASH, which stands for Water, Sanitation, and Hygiene. What's particularly interesting, I find, about Sarah is that she spent last summer in Madagascar doing research work towards her master's program with Emory University, and she was conducting household surveys and taking samples, all for the purpose of helping to predict diarrheal diseases in children, which is a very prevalent issue in the area that she was in. So Sarah, thank you for doing our presentation tonight, and over to you.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here with the Dining for Women family. I just want to make sure that everyone can hear me. Maybe I can get a thumbs up. So yeah, I've been a part of Dining for Women for a while, as Wendy mentioned. My chapter should be here today. I just wanted to do a shout out. This year will be our 10th anniversary. We haven't missed one meeting, so go Atlanta Chapter 1. All right, so straight now to our featured program of the month. And just want to get a thumbs up that the screen is shared. Screen working? Just want to make sure. All right. Okay, so our March 2018 featured grantee is Women's Justice Initiative in Guatemala. This project is, This project is an amazing program that empowers Indigenous women. Oh my goodness, excuse me. Let's try this one more time. All right, empowers Indigenous Guatemalan women and girls to improve their lives through education, access to legal services, and gender-based violence prevention. Where in the world is Guatemala? Guatemala is located on the Pacific Ocean side between El Salvador and Mexico, and on the Caribbean side between Honduras and Belize. This project in particular works with 24 Indigenous Mayan Cachiquel communities in the Patsun municipality of Chimaltenango. I hope I said that right, Guatemala. The country is slightly smaller than the state of Pennsylvania, with a population of about 15 million. And what are we supporting here with this grant this month? Dining for Women, this project will benefit rural Mayan women by developing a network of community advocates who promote women's rights at the local level. And the project will also provide free and legal aid to survivors of violence, as well as civil legal support to women and girls to secure their economic rights through property titling and registration, land disputes, and alimony and child support cases. This project will directly impact over 2,000 women and girls and indirectly impact over 8,000 people, including males in the community. So to give some context on the life challenges that the women in this community serve, Guatemala faces some of the highest levels of violence against women and girls in the world. 27% of women suffer from intimate partner violence in their lifetime. And Guatemala has the third highest femicide rate globally. Rural Indigenous women in particular are disproportionately impacted due in part to their social isolation and limited access to resources. The high incidence of violence against women is exacerbated by social norms that tolerate violence and foster gender inequality. Additionally, the Guatemalan Civil War laid the ground for a lot of the present day legacy of violence that we see today. Indigenous groups make about 40% of the population in Guatemala. 79% are living in poverty and 40% are in extreme poverty. Nearly half of the children in Guatemala are chronically malnourished, one of the highest rates in the world. By age 15, 60% of Indigenous girls drop out of school. By age 18, 40% of Indigenous girls are married. So just a quick look at our budget. This $45,000 grant will help fund staff salaries, training materials, workshop materials, legal services, office costs, meals, and transportation. And just a little history about the grantee. This was founded by Catherine Flatley, who is a lawyer with 15 years of experience in women's rights, access to justice, and public health. And you can see from 2011, when it was founded, it's grown from just being in one community to 5, and now up to 24. So that's where we're gonna end that now, and I will pass this on. Let me stop sharing my screen. All right. So yeah, I'll pass this on to Susan, who's next. Thank you. And excuse me, hold on. The next person, my computer is being a little bit funny, but I'll pass this on.
I think actually, Sarah, what we're going to do right now is we're going to watch the awesome video from Women's Justice Initiative.
Aquí en Guatemala, pues la vida de una mujer indígena es muy difícil porque enfrenta varios problemas en su vida. Una de ellas, como por ejemplo la violencia, y como también las mujeres son las que tienen pocas oportunidades, como la salud, educación y como por ejemplo el acceso a justicia.
Siempre los han discriminado. Uno se desanima porque les cierran las puertas por el hecho de ser indígena. Y ellos no se dan cuenta de que tenemos muchas capacidades.
Somos mujeres, no podemos salir de nuestras casas o tenemos que trabajar. Bueno, pero como bien sé que las mujeres tienen derecho a participar y yo invito a las mujeres que participen. Nuestra misión como organización es trabajar con la población indígena de las comunidades rurales de Guatemala.
Los programas están enfocados mucho a la mujer y eso es algo muy fuerte. Sé que este trabajo es a futuro y se van a ver los resultados mucho más allá de lo que nos imaginamos.
El programa de capacitación va enfocado a grupos de mujeres mayas indígenas de las comunidades rurales. El programa va enfocado en ellas para que ellas conozcan sus derechos. Es el primer programa que llegó en nuestra comunidad. Prácticamente cambia totalmente la familia, porque ya uno puede compartir con muchas personas en las experiencias. Entonces, ahí apoyándonos a las mujeres, y la verdad es que estoy muy contenta porque ahí, o sea que sí, ya hay un cambio en nuestra comunidad.
Mujeres quieren estudiar, y kami quiere conectar, si cada uno está así mejor, o de algo fácil de tomar algo
ellas reciben, puedan compartirlos desde su familia y así dar un futuro mejor a sus hijos y a sus hijas. Este programa surgió en el programa de capacitación en los derechos de la mujer, en donde vimos que es muy importante tener agentes de cambio en la comunidad. Estas mujeres de las comunidades las capacitamos con un curso un poquito más amplio, dar las reuniones a cada mes o a cada 2 meses sobre temas de derechos humanos, derechos de la mujer, violencia contra la mujer, las protecciones legales que existen en nuestro país, que gente quieren que saber cualquier problemas o cualquier situaciones que hay que pasar para que hacer. Entonces, que cada nada diferente que quien toca me porque hoy es que nada más que saber que ya estoy bueno sí. Ya estoy satisfecha porque ya que la van a solucionar con cosas tácticas y con alegría con la joven para solo de esa manera ana en cultivar y aprender y para el futuro o sí. Niñas, a través de estos talleres que se les imparten, ellas pues puedan ver otras opciones en su vida, aparte de la opción, ¿verdad?, de casarse o juntarse a muy temprana edad.
En el programa se enseñan nuevas cosas, lo que uno no ha aprendido, porque uno no ha ido en esa tal vez que no vaya yo con él, voy a ser más feliz que estar en su casa, pero ya analizándolo bien, viendo ese programa, no es tiempo que se case todavía porque ella tiene futuro por delante, ella tiene que estudiar.
Que sea tal instituciones que más continuar y que más orientar, que más enseñanzas, qué es la vida de una mujer, porque cantar cariri ni shock maretamanta, qué es su vida.
El trabajo que se hace es brindar una atención integral a las mujeres que requieren un servicio o una atención o una consulta legal. Empoderar a las mujeres en sus derechos económicos y sociales. También en el tema de la violencia, ver como una herramienta la asesoría para poder ella defenderse de la violencia. También las apoyamos para que ellas luchen por sus derechos en la familia.
Sentirme apoyada es un gran alivio para mí, porque sí en momentos pensé dejar el caso, pero como sentí el gran apoyo, seguí con el caso. A mí, mi mamá porque jale أشتريت ما كنا شبيخ تعدية توقفوني يا بتجار كن
Justice Initiative is so grateful to Dining for Women for your incredible support. Thanks to you, our community advocates will be empowered to promote women's rights in their communities and prevent violence against women and girls. Dining for Women's generous support will increase access to justice for vulnerable women and girls in rural Guatemala and will impact thousands of lives. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. That video is just incredible. Women's Justice Initiative is a wonderful organization, and they will be presenting with Dr. Veena Kandake at the Commission on the Status of Women, UN Commission on the Status of Women next week in New York City. So we're excited to see them there. Next up is Susan Stahl. Susan is the chair of our board of directors going into the second year. She has really done tremendous things for us over the past year, and we're excited as we move forward into our next strategic look at Dining for Women. She will be leading the panel tonight, so I'm going to pass it right over to Susan.
Thanks, Beth Ellen. Well, I hope everybody feels the way that I do. Every time I watch one of our wonderful videos, and do we need to share screen on this? Sorry. No. I am new to this. Anyway, every time I watch our videos of our monthly featured grantees, I'm so inspired by the faces of the beautiful and strong women and girls that we see. And this month is no exception. The Community Advocates Program that we are helping the Women's Justice Initiative to offer the women of Guatemala sets the perfect backdrop for our discussion tonight about advocacy. And just as the Community Advocates Program is helping the women in Guatemala become advocates and agents for change in their communities, our advocacy program here in the United States is going to help us lift up our voices and be advocates for change for women and girls around the world. So we're so excited to be officially kicking off our advocacy program for Dining for Women today on International Women's Day. For many years, our members have been asking Dining for Women to find a way to advocate for the women and girls who we provide grants every month. So this evening, I am delighted that we have got Diane Calvi and Jonathan Pearson here with us as we dig a little bit deeper into the topic of advocacy for women and girls. So first of all, Diane is the president and CEO of Village Enterprise. And Village Enterprise is a wonderful organization that is working to eliminate extreme poverty in sub-Saharan Africa. They have received nearly $100,000 in funding from Dining for Women. They've been both a featured grantee and a sustained grantee. And Village Enterprises has helped people start more than 39,000 small businesses. And the really awesome thing is that over 80% of those businesses are led by women. They've trained over 156,000 new small business owners, and they have helped transform the lives of 850,000 women and children and men in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. And one really interesting thing, Diane has recently launched the first development impact bond for poverty alleviation in sub-Saharan Africa. And the funding of this bond, this impact bond, came from USAID and the UK Department for International Development. And impact bonds are a really creative financing source where foreign aid can be based on measurable results that are achieved. So welcome, Diane.
Thank you.
And then Jonathan Pearson is the advocacy director for the National Peace Corps Association. And he works a great deal with returned Peace Corps volunteers as well as other supporters to advance policies and improve and embolden the Peace Corps. And they also work to promote opportunities for international service, which we all know are extremely transformational experiences, both for the work being done on the ground in the other countries, but also for the volunteers who are working around the world. Jonathan also engages with advocates on other key global issues that impact the people in the countries where the Peace Corps is doing its great work. And then in March of every year, Jonathan coordinates the National Day of Action in support of the Peace Corps. And this is a day when many of the returned Peace Corps volunteers descend upon Capitol Hill to go speak directly with policymakers. And a lot of other volunteers and supporters on that same day call and email their representatives to really have power and impact and to raise up those voices. So I'm going to be posing a couple of questions to Diane and Jonathan to get our conversation going. And we are going to, if we have time, and we're running a little bit behind time, so we'll see if we have time to do this, but hopefully we can open it up for some member questions. And I just want to let you know, if you want to try and send a question for us to pose to our two wonderful guests this evening, then you've got to be logged into Google with your Gmail account. And if you are not watching full screen, on the right-hand side of your screen, there is a chat box, and you can type your question into the comments section. And if we have time, we will try and include questions from people who are watching virtually tonight. But the first question I'm going to go ahead and pose to Diane and Jonathan, and I'm going to get Diane to answer it first. And it's a very broad-based question. But from your perspective, why is U.S. foreign aid so important to women and girls in the developing world?
Well, Susan, first I want to thank you. Thank you for having me. And I want to thank all the Dining for Women chapters for their support of not only Village Enterprise, but of this really important topic of advocacy for women and girls. And the reason foreign aid is so important, as we know, although opportunity for women and girls in the developing world are improving, gender inequality still is having serious negative impacts on the education and health of over 2 billion women and girls in the world. 2/3 of the poor and the illiterate are women and girls. Women have limited access to assets and productive resources, and this creates a generational cycle really difficult to break. And I believe foreign aid can help break that cycle of poverty by providing capital for programs that improve economic, educational, and health outcomes for women. For example, Village Enterprise received USAID funding for our graduation program that includes, as many of you know, Living 90 a Day, and we provide them with a cash grant to start a group business. We also a year and the formation of savings groups. Equipped with the sustainable businesses and savings groups, our women entrepreneurs are permanently breaking the cycle of poverty. And that eliminates the need for foreign aid in the future. We recently completed a randomized control trial of our program. Randomized control trial is sort of the gold standard for evaluations. And that provided evidence that our program is indeed increasing food security, nutrition, increasing the income and savings of these women. And in addition to these financial indicators that are important, we also saw increases in status and standing of women in their communities. And I thought I would just tell a short story of a woman in this program. Her name is Vicky. When I met Vicky, she was in her 20s. But when she was 12 years old, the Lord's in the middle killed every member of her family. And Vicky was really left with no hope for the future. But because of the Village Enterprise program coming to her village when she was in her late teens, and helping start and participating in a safe with able to start. And she had 2 young girls when I met her, and she said before the program, she wasn't able to feed her children. They weren't able to go to school. And now her children are in school, they're eating 2 nutritious meals a day, and her life has really been transformed. And she's just one of the 80,000 women that were impacted positively by this foreign aid that was provided to these women in northern Uganda. So as the story demonstrates, women are likely to invest their income and savings into improving their children's nutrition, education, and healthcare. And by investing in women, we, as you all know, are for our world. Some of you might be concerned about how foreign aid is spent, and increasingly USAID and other foreign aid donors are making sure that foreign aid is spent wisely. Susan, you mentioned the development, and the development impact bond will only fund when we've achieved the results of an increase in income and savings of the women. And while foreign aid needs to be spent wisely, it's imperative that we continue to invest in foreign aid. As Bill Gates and 100 generals have noted, foreign aid is critical to preventing conflict and keeping Americans safe. It's also good for business. And as I've already mentioned, aid directed towards women and girls has a leveraged impact. And like Bill and Melinda Gates, we believe that when women and girls are empowered to live to their full potential, everyone benefits exponentially.
That's awesome. What is so great is how you are partnering with USAID and leveraging those aid dollars and then working to break the cycle. So that's really, really amazing. And I want to get one clarification before I go to Jonathan. Can you very, very briefly tell us, one of our members has actually asked what a randomized controlled trial is. So can you give us a very quick and dirty on what that is?
Yeah, so the most about a randomized controlled trial is that you have a group, an intervention group that's getting the full program, and then you're comparing that to a group that's not receiving anything. And the reason why that's important is because you want to prove the attribution to the program, because a lot of things can happen in a community. And so when you do a randomized control trial, what that ensures is that the impact is indeed the impact of the program. And what we're planning to do is those that were not treated in the initial intervention, we're going back to provide the program to those villages that did not get the program at the beginning. So just for everybody to know that we're not going to leave out those people that were part of what they call the control group. We will be going and offering the program to those villages, but in subsequent rounds.
Terrific. That's awesome. Great news. Okay, so Jonathan, back to you about why U.S. foreign aid is so important to women and girls in the developing world.
Well, thank you very much, Susan. And I'm here with Beth Ellen, and I want to thank everyone with Dining for Women for inviting me to be with you tonight on International Women's Day. And thank you for all of your incredible support to the Peace Corps community. Now, that includes the Peace Corps agency itself for your generous support of Peace Corps programs, and then also the National Peace Corps Association. We're the non-governmental, nonprofit alumni association representing people who served or believe in the mission of the Peace Corps. And it's my honor to be the advocacy director at the National Peace Corps Association. As it relates to the foreign assistance budget, I think our foreign assistance budget is the one way in which our government regularly reaches out to women and girls around the world, often in remote regions and corners of the world, reaches out in the spirit of friendship, in the spirit of peace, and in essence is saying to those individuals that we're thinking of them and that they're not forgotten. So many of the programs that fall under the international assistance budget provide opportunities for girls and women. It includes budget items for a variety of global health initiatives, microfinance programs, education and refugee support, and much, much more. Unfortunately, one of the challenges right now that many of you may be aware of is that these programs are under threat. And there are a number of examples in President Trump's proposed budget to Congress that directly impact programs related to women and girls. So for example, when there's a line item for maternal and child health, and the Trump administration has proposed a 24% cut in that budget from approximately $815 million to $620 million. Educational and cultural exchange programs, there's a proposed 75% cut from about $600 million down to $150 million. And then there's a family planning line item in the international affairs budget. And there's a proposed 50% cut there from about $608 million down to $302 million. And actually, the year before, in the president's first budget, the family planning line item was proposed to be eliminated. One of the phrases you sometimes hear when we talk about the international affairs programs, a phrase that's common in Washington and you may have heard of before, is a reference to so-called soft power. It's the idea that when we reach out to the world, reaching out in a spirit of friendship, in a spirit of cooperation. And this is the so-called, many of these programs, including Peace Corps, are referred to sometimes as the soft power part of our budget. However, the head of the President's Office of Management and Budget, Mick Mulvaney, was asked about this after the first budget, and this is what he said in terms of the president's budget. He said, "It is not a soft power budget. This is a hard power budget," referring to the president's budget. And that was done intentionally. The president very clearly wants to send a message to our allies and to our potential adversaries that this is a strong power administration. So not only are these programs important to women and girls around the world, but the reason you're gathered here tonight and the reason we're having this discussion about advocacy is equally important in order to make the point that these programs are important as part of our outreach to the world, as part of our foreign policy. In closing, one thing I wanted to mention was, as Susan mentioned, we were just up on Capitol Hill actually 1 week ago from right now. We were in the midst of celebrating the end of our long day on Capitol Hill. We had about 150 returned Peace Corps volunteers and friends, and we did about 170 meetings during the course of that day. And that included, our group included about 20 representatives from foreign embassies. And I was on a team that was focused on the state of Kentucky. We had several returned Peace Corps volunteers from Kentucky. And we also had a representative from the Embassy of Mozambique. And he was so incredible in terms of being part of our team because he brought the face of his country and his people to the meeting. And one of the things that he spoke most passionately about in terms of Peace Corps, but it could pertain to other aspects of the programs we're talking about, he was so thankful for the work that Peace Corps was doing in offering education programs to support and build upon the work of his countrymen and countrywomen. And he thanked Congress specifically for the Peace Corps. And then our Kentucky returned Peace Corps volunteers shared some of their experiences, either as teachers or working with a program through Peace Corps called Girls Leading Our World, a workshop program that started 20 years ago and is a very common part of Peace Corps programs to this day. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Susan for further questions, and thank you for the opportunity to be with you tonight.
Thanks, Jonathan. And you did already discuss the magnitude, excuse me, of funding. Who decides where the foreign aid, where the money goes?
Yeah, and that's a great way to start from where I left off. So you have the president, and his administration that first puts their budget and sends it to Congress. And again, when I was reciting those figures, what it all amounts to is that the international affairs programs, which includes everything from our State Department to our foreign assistance through U.S. Agency for International Development, to many of the line items I mentioned, to Peace Corps, and then there's also military assistance programs and direct aid to foreign governments included in that budget. That whole budget in the president's request to Congress amounts to about a 30% cut. Almost 1 out of every $3 is being proposed to be cut out of those programs. And I mentioned a few of them in terms of the means and the large amounts of cuts that are being proposed. But the important thing is that the Congress is the one that has the ultimate decision. And last year, when the president submitted his budget, and I think this year as well, many members of Congress are looking at that proposal and saying quite strongly that this proposal is not going to happen. This isn't going to go anywhere. This proposal is dead on arrival. And many members of Congress who are strong supporters of foreign assistance are looking at ways to take the president's budget and consider it, but they are the ones that ultimately will make the call in terms of how much we'll be spending on our foreign assistance programs. In both the United States Senate and the House of Representatives, there are key committees. One of the key committee that eventually deals with this is the Appropriations Committee. And within the Appropriations Committee, there is a subcommittee called the State Foreign Operations Subcommittee. And the members of that subcommittee are presented with an eventual number of dollars that they can disperse among the dozens of line item programs that they're responsible for. So while the president gets the ball started and gets it rolling with his request, ultimately the Congress sits down and starts determining the finer details of how much and where that money will go.
Thanks so much, Jonathan. That's, I think everybody will agree with me. We all have a lot to learn, which is a big part of what we want to do with the Dining for Women Advocacy Program, is learn about how all this works. And Diane, I want to go back to you for a minute now. You already mentioned a little bit about what we see clearly. We talk about all the time at Dining for Women that women invest more back into communities, and so that's why it's great to invest in women. How would you say that investing in women and girls makes foreign assistance, foreign aid more effective?
Well, I think it's just a much more leveraged way of doing foreign aid. I mean, I talked a little bit about this breaking the cycle of poverty and how many women in the world today are negatively impacted because in the developing world, women and girls are more likely to be illiterate, perform unpaid work, eat less in lean times, and yet at the same time, we know that women invest 90% of their income back into their families compared to just 35% that men invest. So we know that when women are empowered, that fuels the current and future economic growth. And one statistic that I think is really powerful, according to a recent McKinsey Global Institute report, $12 trillion could be added to the global GDP by 2025 by advancing women's equality. And USAID can play a really critical role in this by supporting evidence-based programs in the developing world that are directed to women and girls specifically. And I don't know if all of you have heard about, but Melinda and Bill Gates just announced $170 million that they are going to be directing specifically to women and girls because evidence is that this has an impact, positive impact.
Sorry, I have to remember to unmute myself. Thanks, Diane. That's fascinating and wonderful news about what the Gates are doing. And Jonathan, I want to pose this question to you now. How can Dining for Women members make a difference in something as complicated as the federal foreign aid budget?
Well, I believe that one of the things we always tell our advocates is when you go and meet with your senator or your congressman, or most often you're meeting with their staff, whether it's in a district office or coming to Washington, or you're meeting with them at a town hall meeting or at the country fair. One of the things to remember is you don't have to be an expert. Nobody expects you to know everything, every detail about the international affairs budget. It's good to have some facts, but probably as equally important is speaking to your passion. So if there's one element of the work, the kind of programs, whether it's education or microfinance or family planning that you feel passionate about, try to learn a little bit about that element and speak to the importance of why that's important to you. And as part of a general comment about why is it important for us as a nation to reach out to the world with a hand of friendship. When you think about things that have happened over the years, we remember America and the United States because of the Marshall Plan and what happened after World War II. We remember the United States because of the Statue of Liberty and having open borders and supporting people fleeing persecution. These are things that everybody can resonate to, I believe, and making those cases in a manner which you're talking about why this is important to you is very important. And then the last thing I'll say is that one of the things that we always tell people is if you're asked a question about the budget and you don't know the answer, it is perfectly okay to say, I don't know the answer to that question, but let me get back to you about it. And I know Dining for Women has a great advocacy toolkit that they've prepared. So certainly they've got a lot of the facts and figures. And one of the great things when you say, gee, I don't know the answer to that question, but I'll get back to you, it begins the process of building a stronger relationship with the staff so that you do come back to them, you give them that information they were looking for. It strengthens your contact and your communication, and it builds their respect for you as a trusted constituent who has facts and information that they work with them to provide.
And Jonathan, that is actually a perfect segue. Again, I want to thank Diane and Jonathan for being with us tonight and lending their powerful expertise and what they have seen in their work. And I'm going to turn it back over to Beth Ellen now to talk a little bit more about Dining for Women's Advocacy Program and what we're hoping to accomplish and how we want to lift up our voices on behalf of women and girls around the world. So back to you, Beth Ellen.
I am so excited and grateful for Diane's and Jonathan's advice and perspective on this, because I know so many of our members are excited to start to take action. What I really loved about what Jonathan said is take your passion, what you're passionate about. Use the advocacy guide that we've provided for you and go back and find one of the grantees that you loved and talk about the benefits that that program has given to women and girls. I think that as you think about it more and look at the advocacy materials and you break the seal and you make that first phone call or you send that first email, you're going to feel like, anybody can do this because anybody can. That is the whole purpose of democracy, that anybody can. So I know that all of us can raise our voices And Wendy is going to share our advocacy page, I think, on the screen in a moment, so that I can point out to you where our education materials are and where our call to action is. We have sample emails, sample telephone scripts. You can use that sample email to write a letter or a postcard yourself. Right now is the best time to start calling our representatives. And this is another thing to remember, is that this is very much a bipartisan effort. We're a member of a group called the U.S. Global Leadership Coalition, which is led by all past secretaries of state. There are conservative and liberal groups that are a part of this. And the reason is because foreign aid and international affairs are something that we need to invest in, not just for women and girls, but for our security and for our friendly relations around the world. So this is something that we can all get behind. I'm going to give you an example. I live in South Carolina, Greenville, and my senator is Lindsey Graham. He is, as you probably know, a very well-known Republican. He is a huge advocate for foreign aid and for international affairs. This is the perfect example of how this is a bipartisan issue, and it's something that Republicans and Democrats can get behind, and our very diverse in thought membership can get behind. Hopefully everybody can see the advocacy guide on the page. If you can't, if you go to our homepage, there is a link to it right there. We have all the materials for you, but we are here to help. If you feel like you need some help, email us. We have a wonderful, strong advocacy committee that is also ready to help. And we want to hear your stories. We want to hear how somebody who never has done this before did it and what your experience was. So please email us and let us know. You can email us at info@diningforwomen.org. I just want to wrap up with our national conference, which is going to be at the U.S. Institute of Peace on March 4th and 5th in Washington, D.C. Justine Allen and I are going tomorrow to just do final arrangements there with their staff, and it is so beautiful and so inspiring. The speakers that they will have, I went to a presentation there this morning. Their speakers and their programming is awesome, and we have so many, over 12 grantees coming in to speak. We have about 50 more spaces in the conference, so please sign up, see us there. I want to give you all hugs, and I really look forward to seeing you there. And if not, I will see you all on visits around the country. I said March 4th and 5th, and I meant May 4th and 5th. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, everybody, and have a great night. And happy International Women's Day.